Math 140, week number 4. Let's check out this second video. We're going to summarize or analyze the relationship that you talked about in your scatter plot and on your regression line. Those videos for weeks 3 and weeks 4 about scatter plots, regression lines, they've got them posted. Today we get to the analysis questions, and you're going to put it all together, submit by Sunday. Let's talk about my own data. I mentioned I'm a basketball fan. Lakers are my team. If we're talking about players, our man Russell Westbrook, most stylish, most intense, and certainly one of the most exciting players in the league. And he puts up numbers. As a math teacher, I can get to that website and I can get all his numbers. And we can put them together in a graph. We can do this analysis. In particular, I'm thinking the MP, the minutes he plays, which is quantitative, should influence the amount of points you score. The more minutes you play, the more points you score. Well, that seems to make sense to me. And that's a quantitative relationship. So let's make a scatter plot. Let's do a regression line. Let's do an analysis. Get into Excel. We can get that taken care of. But I need to organize or clean up this data. There's numbers all over the place. So I just want to focus on the minutes played. So I'm going to copy those and paste them over here where I'm going to make the scatter plot. And I want to focus on the point scored. So I right click, I copy that, and I get back to the scatter plot. And I paste. You see there's different paste options. I'm going to go for the one with numbers because we're doing numbers here. All the data is nice and neat. It's organized. It needs to be highlighted. Insert. And then you got different graphs. We want the scatter plot. This process, you've done it before. Your week 3 submissions, right on point. So I think that's going to be straightforward. I'm going to mention one more time to make this graph nice and neat. I'm going to look for a label for the week 4 submission. In this version of Excel, if I hit design, add chart element, and you'll see there's all different ways I can address the titles. In this case, I want axis titles. Let's just go for the horizontal right now. I want these numbers reference the minutes that he played during a game. Obviously, these ones, since I'm talking about minutes played and points, these are going to be points. I'll let you go back here and change the title of the graph as well. But you get the idea of what I'm looking for. Okay, before I get to that regression line also, I'm just going to make a broad observation of this related to my question. It does look like the more minutes you play, those dots do look like they're going up. Not perfectly. I mean, it's not a perfect line, but I see a relationship. And the reason I want to focus on that is because question number 2 says, does it have a linear correlation? Your answer is going to be subjective, but you will be able to answer just by looking. I say, yeah. Watch what I'm going to say. I'm going to say not a perfect linear relationship, but points increase generally. You see, I put in those words to kind of give you some wiggle room because it's not perfect. As minutes increase. So you see what I'm doing here. Now, if you want to impress your math teacher, hint, 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 go for it. We can use some math language, and we can say it's a weak positive. It's weak because it's not perfect. It's positive because they're going up. We could say it's a weak positive correlation. You're going to describe that subjectively. I've got some vocab. That vocab there is definitely keep that in mind. Question 3, we can also answer before we get to a line. Outliers. If you look at this data, you could say, hey, maybe this dot's a little short. Maybe this dot's way high up. I will let you make those choices. It is subjective. Obviously, these dots look normal. They're all kind of clustered together. This one's an outlier. This one might be an outlier. And I say might because it's subjective. If you find one that's an outlier, if you click that dot and move right on top of it, on Excel, it should show you the number. So there it is. There it is. You can see here he played 45 minutes and he scored 51 points. And that's the type of thing that here you could type that in. I'll leave that to you, but outliers are subjective. Identify and then use Excel to get some numbers. All right. Any other questions we can do before we do the regression line? Yeah, actually, number 4, let's bang that out. Explanatory, response variable. Those are fancy words for stuff that you know already. X in my graph, if you go back to the scatter plot, X is right there, minutes played. Y represents the points. So X is the minutes. X is the minutes played. Y we know is the points. Explanatory is a fancy word for the X. And I think you know what's going on here. This is a response. Fancy name for the Y. I can't type. You get the idea. That's real easy. Number 2, your observation. Number 3, your subjective observations. Number 4, straightforward. You tell me the X and you tell me the Y. I'm going to do the slope and then crank out the lurking variable last. Slope. Regression line. Okay, we talked about regression line before. You click your graph. Up here in design on this version, the add chart element, you got a trend line. Let's go to these options. It'll give me a lot of different stuff. I do want a linear, I do want an equation, and it pops right up here. Y equals mx plus b. If you remember all that stuff from high school math class. The m is the coefficient or the number that's attached to that x. So if you see that coefficient attached to the x, it's 1.1508. That is your slope. So slope is your whatever number or coefficient is attached to the x in your equation. In my case, 1.1508. But once again, if you want to impress your math teacher, hint, 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 go for it. You can interpret that. What is changing? Slope is another way to say, how is this line changing? It's going up. So in other words, as minutes increase, slope is talking about increases. As the minutes increase, the points increase by 1.1508. Now, can we say that perfectly? No, because look at that graph. They're kind of scattered all around. So we could say they increased by 1.1508 generally. Some nights you might play more minutes and not score more. Some nights it might work like that. So the slope, you can get that from the equation. The analysis, I'll let you interpret that in your data, but make sure you put some of those words like generally or on average, because it's not going to be, I don't think anyone's going to find a perfect correlation. Very last one, lurking variable. That's a common sense sort of thing. We're trying to identify minutes affecting points. But we know, even if you watch one basketball game in your life, you know there's a lot of other things that influence a basketball game. So here's one example of a lurking variable. A lurking variable in my case might be a good defensive team. Once again, this has nothing to do with math. It has to do with common sense. You know that good defense affects how many points you're going to score. I know some of you have movie data. Well, shoot, maybe it's a good movie star. Maybe that movie's released in Christmas or the summertime. All sorts of things might affect what's going on. I know someone had a worldwide data. Population, how's that affected by where you live, incomes, religions, all sorts of things that affect your numbers. So lurking variable is a fancy word for find something that's common sense that might affect these numbers also. And I'm just going to start with defensive team. Obviously, there's a lot of different things that might play into it. I could come up with 3 or 4. Challenge you to dig in on your analysis questions. Data, you got it. Scatter plot, you know how to do it. Regression line, you know. Questions, I'm outlining what the answers are going to be. I'm looking for thoughtful responses on your part. Put them together. Get them to me on Blackboard by Sunday.